Our next speaker is Professor Atmanand of MDI Gurgaon. Professor Atmanand.
Most of the things we have already discussed. In fact, I was in the World Energy Council, 21st World Energy Congress at Montreal. In the World Energy Council, the issues which were discussed were four important issues. One, accessibility, second, adaptation, and third, energy poverty, and the fourth, energy security. And I found that majority of the sessions where the papers were presented and the speakers and the chairman of the various companies which we talked about were talking and focusing more about energy security and enhancing energy security by integrated energy policy and development measures. What should be the future direction for the India's energy development policy? Now, if we look at and read all those documents and the policy documents of the Government of India, we find at the end of the chapters that the basic problem right now is the business model that we want to develop for the development of the energy sector in our country. Question about the participation of the private sector along with the public sector and the government is around the issues of risks, the project cost, and the mitigation of the risks. Therefore, we have to learn the lessons from China. Now, why Chinese model is very successful? Why is it that the Chinese companies attract more investment, that the largest investment in the hydropower projects have been made by the Quebec, Canada, and Quebec Hydropower, and they have joined hands with the Chinese company and Chinese government to make heavy investment into hydropower projects. Why is it that we are not attracting those kinds of the investment in our country? That's $1 million question, because unless we attract the foreign direct investments from other energy companies towards India, how do we think that we will make the investment into hydropower projects or solar projects more investment friendly? I'd like to say that the business model for India would be very simple, and that takes into consideration four drivers. First, that the demand side, we should focus more on demand side management. From the supply side, we should bring change in the energy mix, and both production and transmission and distribution. And third is the tariff, that is tariff-related issues. The tariff have to be more cost-effective and cost-neutral, and should also promote market. And the fourth would be the consumer side. That is, the consumer should also find the adequate power, reliable power, so that the consumer satisfaction index and the producer satisfaction index and the overall satisfaction index of the country should increase more. And then we should think about which business model we should go for it. All the business models are available today, but again, if we want PPP model to be successful, let us learn the lesson from the Delhi power sector reforms, where the PPP model has been very, very successful, has been sustainable to bring all the stakeholders together on one platform, and today all the stakeholders, including consumers, are happy. Thank you very much, sir.
Have very correctly dwelt on the importance of tariff reforms, the public-private partnership models, the question of demand-side management, and the very important requirement of the infrastructure of the smart grid, which would enable renewable energy technologies to be scaled up. Our next speaker is Mr. Vinod Kala, Founder Director, Emergent Ventures India.
So good afternoon, friends. Lot has already been spoken about the various aspects which are covered in the integrated energy development. A lot of integration issues, it's a very interesting word which has been used here, which is integrated energy development. And let me, cite some examples of how a further, lot of work has already happened. So I'm not saying that it is, but how a further integration of some of the concepts will actually help the sector. And when we're looking at lighting projects in India, most often than not, the tariff at which the energy efficiency saved is being worked on, in fact, is cheaper than the commercial power rate in that particular state. As an example, in a particular state, the marginal tariff that is being recorded, which is being accorded to the energy saving ESCO company, is 3.5 rupees, whereas the tariff that actually even the commercial consumers pay is 5.6 rupees. So if, for example, this marginal difference in the cost actually is accommodated, then you will have huge shifts in the lighting business, not only in municipal corporations, but also in commercial establishments, also at homes, because at a marginal cost of 5.5 to 6 rupees, including the fact that, okay, you are saving distribution costs and very expensive renewable energy, which otherwise you're willing to pay for, is what you will get. So this is, for example, one level of thinking that has to come, that how energy efficiency should be priced. The second level of integrated thinking is needed is that in a particular location, there are incentives, so you can have one kind of incentive for solar, one kind of incentive for wind, one kind of incentive for biomass projects. An integrated wasteland development policy, which also allows, for example, plantations to be taken up on those lands, right? Because wind only consumes, let's say, about 10% of the total land, which actually is otherwise available. And the remaining, 85 to 90% land is still available. And if it is waste, it could be used for some kind of plantation activity. India has almost 100 million hectares of land, which is actually not so usable. So not only you are creating large sinks, but on a sustainable basis, you are able to get biomass, which actually can be further used for biomass gasification projects or biomass, power projects. So this is another, kind of integrated thinking which is needed. Another interesting example that you can see is, in terms of power for agriculture, okay, or for irrigation. Inefficient diesel generation, which leads to 15 rupees or 16 rupees or 17 rupees a kilowatt hour of kind of power cost. And then they use it with pumps, which are extremely inefficient, right? And then they have further load of power cost coming onto them. So there are three kinds of factors which are all coming together. They all possibly are having separate solutions from the policy, but can we have a combined solution, right? Which is where the integration will work. For example, either propagation of those techniques of agriculture which don't require so much of power. Clearly, water harvesting at a very massive scale is a need of the hour in India, so the water tables actually rise up, right? And then, of course, pumping, which is so clear and evident use where energy efficiency and solar applications both can be applied. This is not something which is clearly getting focused on, and agriculture is using a lot of power in India, clearly. So this is my submission that I think a lot of integration of policy is needed across various sectors. And if we can do that, then we may not necessarily tread the path of a China, because China fundamentally has been able to attract investment by simple fact that they have announced, for example, 150 or 120 gigawatt plan for wind power. Now such a large plan just being invested will attract investment. But I think India will have to follow its own path, and India still can become a very attractive country for renewable energy if we are able to think together and create an really integrated energy development policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kala, for emphasizing the importance of policy integration. And indeed, this is one of the major issues in policy making, not just in India, but worldwide, because different policy making entities, central, federal government ministries, state government departments and so on, tend to work in terms of silos. And I don't think any country has really been able to comprehensively address the issue of policy coordination. And thank you also for drawing your attention to the challenges and the potential of the agricultural sector. In TERI, we have done an exercise as part of the formulation of the National Action Plan on Climate Change, which show that the agricultural residues constitute energy resource equivalent to more than 500 million tons of coal equivalent. Of course, it's not that this energy is not used, it is used very inefficiently. It is used partly to feed a very unnecessarily large cattle population. It's also used very inefficiently in village cook stoves, and there are important technological and policy challenges in being able to access this very important renewable resource.